Matthew chapter 14, verses 1 to 12. John is beheaded. Our subject matter that we will be featuring in this section is Herod the Tetrarch, and our Greek structures will be the uninflected words. Uninflected words are words that will be found in the analytical lexicon right here. Our analytical lexicon at the beginning is a study guide, which you're looking at right now. It's free to download on its own on the apostolicbible.com website. It's built upon the parts of speech of Greek, and the parts of speech are 8. Noun, preposition, adjective, pronoun, verb, adverb, number, and particle. And as you go through it, you'll see the structure where they have the parts of speech is all in caps, and then the Greek word, the English equivalent, and then the Greek word parsed. Here is an adjective, masculine, accusative, singular. And it goes down and explains all of these things. Now, inflections. Inflections are spelling aberrations that affect a word meaning in some way and follow a consistent pattern and are located within describers. The parts of speech, nouns, pronouns, adjectives, verbs, and etc., are all inflected, which by a change in spelling alters the meaning of a word. Like in English, you have the word to go. If you looked up go in the Webster's Dictionary, then you'll find going, ing added, or gone, different spelling, same as in Greek. Except it says the preposition, adverb, and particles are not inflected. That is, they are always spelled the same way, for the exception of a preposition that ends with a vowel and the following word begins with a vowel. Then the ending vowel of the preposition is deleted, taken away. Uninflected words are again the preposition, adverb, and particles. Our first uninflected word, the preposition, it says prepositions describe the position, time, and cause of a word or words they modify. Like if it was a house, it would be over, around, inside, going out, from, below, direction. And that would be the preposition. Then the adverb, it says an adverb is any uninflected word that answers to the questions of when, where, how, and why. And the words which answer the question will be adverbs of the classes below. And it goes into this, and we'll go a little bit more into adverbs later in this section. Then there are the particles. The particles are uninflected words which are neither prepositions, numbers, or adverbs. And the following 8 subdivisions of particles are found in the analytical lexicon: a conjunction, a compound, emphatic, indeed, enclitic, exclamation, alas, whoa, interjection, well done, a negative, it's not, transliteration, amen, from the Hebrew. So these are all part of what we are going to feature in this section. And it'll be color-coded with the preposition being in cyan, the conjunction being in orange, and the adverb being in green. So with that, we'll go into the 14th chapter, verse 1. It says, "In akino to karo ikusen erodis o tetarchis tin akoin isu." At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard the report of Jesus. This Herod is also called Antipas. Tetrarch is more of a title. Antipas is his name. And he was a son of Herod the Great. And Herod the Great had many children, many sons and wives. His first 2 sons, Alexander and Aristobulus, he had killed because they were trying to take power away from Herod and rule, so he had him killed. His next son, Antipater, was put to death by the Romans for the same reason of plotting against Herod, but Herod didn't kill him, but the Romans did. And then Herod the Great was mentioned at the time of Jesus' birth, and when the Magi came and visited, and then Herod had the babies all killed that were around Bethlehem. That was Herod the Great. The next son, Archelaus, mentioned in Matthew 2:22, was the ruler who the angel came and told Joseph he could go back to Nazareth. Then Archelaus was ruling, but that's the only mention in the Bible of Archelaus. And then we get to this place here with Herod Antipas, the Tetrarch. He was a younger brother of Archelaus. And later on, Herod, who has John put to death, is exiled to Gaul in France, and where he dies. In verse 2 it continues, Ke ipe tis paisin avtu, utos estin Ioannis o baptistis. This one is John, the one immersing. Avtos igerthi apo ton nekron. He is risen from the dead. Ke dia tuto e dinamis eger energusin in avto. He is risen from the dead ones. However he came across that thought pattern, we don't know, but he did. And it says, and because of this, he says, the works of power are exerted in him, Jesus. He's taken the power of John. It has it all backwards, but it doesn't matter, I suppose. So John, he says, is risen from the dead. So Herod has John killed, and that's what we are going to go through here. It says, O gar Herodes, for Herod, kratisus ton Ioannin, having held John, edison avton ke etheto in philaki dia erodiada, tin gineka philippu tu adelpho avtu. For Herod, having held John, bound him and put him in prison on account of Herodias, the wife of Philip, his brother. The Herod here is Antipas, and another brother was Philip. It's called Philip the First, and he was a son of a Cleopatra, a princess of Jerusalem, not the famous one in Egypt. And Philip the First was married to Herodias, and they had a daughter named Salome. And we know that from Eusebius's work that later he tells us about this marriage of Philip and Herodias, having Salome as a daughter. And then Herodias divorces Philip and marries Antipas here, the one we're talking about. And so this is what John is coming against. And then in verse 4 it continues as Elege gar avto o Ioannis, for John said to him, Uk exastisi echin avtin, is not allowed to you to have her, because she divorced him. He didn't die. So John tells this to Herod, and it doesn't go over well with Herodias, who now wants to get rid of him. It says, and ke thelon avton apokatine, and wanting to kill him, that is Herod, ephovithi ton oklon, he feared the multitude, oti os prophetin avton ikon, and for they held him as a prophet. Now John, we see, was a relative of Jesus. It says in Luke 1:36, and behold, Elizabeth, your relative, this is the angel speaking to Mary, even she is having conceived a son in her old age. And this one, being called sterile, is in her 6th month. So Mary comes and visits Elizabeth, and the baby leaps in Elizabeth's womb, and the story goes into detail in Luke. And then in Matthew 11:2, it says, "And then when John, having heard in jail the works of the Christ, having sent 2 of his apostles, said to him, 'Are you the coming one, or another are we expecting?'" So this was something we have already went through in Matthew 11, but it shows that John had some type of a doubt. He was wanting to know if this Jesus, his relative, was the coming one or not. And then Jesus answers by saying, Amen, in verse 11 of 11, "Amen, I say to you, there has not risen among ones born of women greater than John, the one immersing. But the lesser in the kingdom of the heavens is greater than he." John, no one's greater than John. But John's on earth, and the people in the kingdom of the heavens are in heaven. They're there forever, and it's a way higher plane. So the lesser of them is higher than the highest of the plane on earth, which would have been John, the one immersing. And Jesus mentions this. Now, the immersing, we go into that in detail in Matthew chapter 3, verses 13 to 17 video. You can go back and check that video out if you want to find out more about immersing. And then it continues, "Genesion they agomenon to erodhu," but a birthday being celebrated of Herod, or kisato e thigatir tis erodiadas, in to meso, and the daughter of Herodias danced in the midst. Now she would have been the stepdaughter of this Herod, but now Herodias married Herod Antipas. She divorced Herod Philip and married the brother. But the other second Herod, Philip II, was another son of Herod the Great, a brother of this Herod. There was these 3: Herod Antipas, Philip of Cleopatra, and Philip of Mariamne, different mothers but the same father. But the 2 Philips both named Philip. And the first Philip was married to Herodias, who divorced him and married Herod Antipas. But when she was married to Philip I, she had the daughter Salome, and Philip II married Salome, the daughter of Herodias, later on. So there's quite a bit. You can go into Wikipedia, find out more about this, or read Josephus, where he goes into some detail, because it says, Josephus says, "Herodias took upon her to confound the laws of our country and divorced herself from her husband while he was alive." That was Philip I, and was married to Herod Antipas, who was the Herod here that kills John the Baptist. So Josephus writes about this. And then, so now she's dancing, and it would have been Salome. The word Salome does not appear in the Bible, but it does in Eusebius and other historical works at that time. And it says, "Ke irise to erodi," and she pleased Herod. There are a lot of videos on Salome dancing, the 7 veils, and they've made movies out of this whole story and operas. In verse 7, "Othen meth orku homologison avti thune o eon itisite." Whereupon, with an oath, he acknowledged to give to her whatever she asked. Now, oaths are all mentioned in Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 to 37 video. You can go back, and it goes into oaths in detail. And the book of Luke goes into the story more in detail by saying that Herod would allow her to be second in his kingdom, probably married to one of his sons or so forth. In verse 8, "So she, they, provivasthisa, epo tis mitrosavtis," and so she, being forced by her mother, "Dos me, fisin," give to me, she says, "O they epi, pinaki, tin Kaphalin Ioannou tu baptistou. So here we have an adverb. It's not a preposition. So it has an epsilon in the end, and the epsilon begins the following word, but it's not a preposition. If it was a preposition, then the epsilon would have been taken out with a little accent mark placed above the elated area. So she says, Ode api pinakitin kephalin Ioannou tu baptistou. Here upon a platter, the head of John, the one immersing, give to her. In the imperative, give her, that's what I want. And then verse 9, Ke elepithi o vasilefs, and the king fretted. Dia they tus orcus, ke tus sinanakimenus, ekelevson dothine. But on account of the oaths and the ones reclining together with him, he bid it, that would be the head, to be given. Now here we see thea, which is a preposition, and then they, which is a particle, and then up here, o they would be an adverb. All uninflected words. In verse 10, Ke pempsus apokephali se ton Ioannin in ti philaki, and having sent forth, he beheaded John in the prison. Ke ikephali aftu inikthi api pinaki, and his head was brought upon a platter. Ke adothi to korasio, and was given to the young woman. Inike ti mitri aftis, and she brought it to her mother. Ke proselthontes imathite aftu, and his disciples having come of John, Iran to soma ke ethopson afto. They carried the body without the head apparently and buried it. Ke elthontes apingilan to Isu, and having come, they reported to Jesus. So here we have who Jesus calls the greatest person, greatest man, and he dies this horrible death as a martyr of a witnessing of the things of God. And I think of us, we could be called to be martyrs. Maybe and maybe not, but hopefully if we are called to be a martyr, we would be given the power to be able to bear and go through what tests that God is allowing us to go through. Maybe it was a test to John. Are you going to stay with Jesus, who you now have heard, who has raised the dead and healed lepers and all these wonderful things? Are you going to stay with him, or are you going to deny him? And he stayed with Jesus, apparently. Our next section, Jesus feeds the 5,000.